Hello and welcome to our Yes Zone live this afternoon. It's fantastic to have you all here again. We've had fantastic registrations for our event this afternoon, and we would love you to please put into the comments where you are dialing in from. We have had registrations from all over Australia and also other countries around the world. So if you could pop into comments now before we get started, where you are coming in from this afternoon or this morning, if it's a different time zone, then we would love to know where that is so we can see where you are and we can get started. So as I said, welcome. It is fantastic to be here. I haven't been on a live now for a couple of weeks, so it is good to be back. My name is Rachel Burke. I'm the head trainer and founder of SalesSPACE. And at SalesSPACE, we teach the perfect sales system if you sell high value products or services. Our promise is to teach you how to be masterful at selling without ever sounding salesy. This afternoon, we have got a very special guest on our LinkedIn Live, and that is, I should say, before I introduce our guest, I'm going to tell you what our LinkedIn Live is about. So we are talking about creating a strategic power network on LinkedIn. And as you can see there, our very special guest is the one and only Jo Saunders. So come on in, Jo, come into our room. Wonderful to have you here.
I'm excited to be here. I always love our chats, Rachel.
Yes, absolutely. You've just got so much to offer. So for those of you who don't know Jo, she is Australia's leading LinkedIn expert. In fact, she is a LinkedIn expert known across the globe. She has won many awards for her ability to demystify the LinkedIn platform that we all love and want to be so much better at. And I thought there is absolutely no better person to have on our live this afternoon than Jo, because I said to Jo the other day, I really want to get a much savvier when it comes to being on LinkedIn so that I can create power networks for myself. How on earth do I do that? And I said, in fact, Jo, let's just actually have a public discussion about this, because I'm sure there's so many people who also want to know that. So, Jo, it is good to have you here.
Yeah, likewise. I mean, I love a good public discussion. I love talking about LinkedIn, and I love talking about helping people really step out and step onto that online stage and get the outcomes that they're looking for.
Yes, absolutely. And it's so tricky with LinkedIn. It's so easy to get lost. It's so easy to lose hours. I don't know about anybody here who's listening right now, but pop into the chat whether or not you have experienced the same experience that I have, that you can spend hours on LinkedIn and get yourself quite lost. Pop into the chat now and let me know, yes, or into the comments, I should say, yes, I get a little bit lost on LinkedIn as well, because I certainly know I do. Well, I certainly used to. Before I met Jo, and now the way we do LinkedIn is a completely different experience. But there is something else I want to know, and that's about the strategic networking, because with this, it's going to take my ability to work LinkedIn to a whole nother level. So before we go into this, I'm just looking for my little spielie, which I cannot find. Yes, I can. All right, let me go to this page right here. So what I wanted to say is what we're talking about this afternoon is how to use LinkedIn to its maximum potential, because connecting with people that you can help and vice versa is something that you can and should be very intentional about. In today's business climate, digital connection is more prevalent than it ever has been. So mastering the art of networking online is crucial to business growth. Strategic networking and purposeful positioning will drive success on LinkedIn. So this afternoon, Jo and I are going to talk about learning how to determine and target your ideal network, facilitate and develop meaningful and mutually beneficial relationships, grow your database through your power network, and also creating a power network on LinkedIn to develop partnerships to help you achieve your goals. And I can't wait to ask you loads of questions. So I'm going to get into our questions in a moment, but what I want you all who are listening this afternoon to be doing is to write up any questions you have into the comments, because if you pop your questions into comments, I will go through the questions I have for Jo, but then we would love to share your questions that you have for Jo as well, so that she can be answering things that are really important to you, or you may have been having troubles or a few struggles yourself, and you just don't know how to get around the platform well enough. This afternoon is your chance to ask the expert how to do it. So pop any questions you have in there so we can revert to them when I've asked just Jo all my questions. All right, so The first one, Joe, is, let's get straight into it. Number one, how can LinkedIn improve your networking strategy? So if you're a business owner or a business professional on LinkedIn, how can this platform actually improve the networking strategy?
Yeah, great question. Because I think the thing that people get wrong is the going in and connecting to everybody and then not knowing what to do, or doing it in the wrong way. So you've got to think about your brand. So, it starts with having a branded optimized profile, because that's going to sell you. It's going to come up in Google searches and, help you build that credibility. But then it's what to do next. Now, there are two pieces to LinkedIn other than your profile. One's content, and then one is your network, or I like to call it community, because you're building a community of like-minded people that you want to influence. So this is a model I've come up with. So your content alone is not going to convert people, and it's not going to make the biggest impact on your audience. So it's about having content and contributing to conversations intelligently, but it's also about having influence, and influence comes from engagement, building a network and engaging. And then collectively, it's about influence and impact with the right people. So in terms of building that community, and you'll notice I say community and not connections, because community it implies there's a connection, and we're being strategic about it. And because if you connect to, like I said, random people, you're not going to be able to have that connection with them, because it's not going to make sense. But the key is, first, to think about who is it you want to influence, whose world do you want to change. And I know you talk about a lot about that in your program, at SalesSPACE, the targeting piece and the who, because when you're clear about who you want to influence and who you want to impact, your messaging, then you have clarity and conviction, which is a term I've come up with from working with you, Rachel.
Yes.
I know we love clarity and conviction, because that gives you conversion down the track. And then you can make that influence. So one thing I like to say is invisibility is the enemy of influence and impact. I know that's quite a strong statement, and if you disagree with me, let me know in the comments. But really, if you're invisible, you're not showing up, and you're not creating that connection, or what I like to call connectfluence, which is the art of influence through connection, and the two go hand in hand, as I said. So it's about not being the best kept secret in your industry, and having the courage to show up, connect, and be of service to people. And it reminds your community that you're there and you can be of service then. And we know that, before we sell to someone, you can't sell in one transaction. It's about having multiple touch points. And I know, Rachel, you can probably add a lot to that conversation.
Yes, absolutely.
It's about touch points, isn't it?
Yes, it certainly is. Absolutely. Okay, so tell us a little bit more about it. I know that I've got another slide here that I wanted to share. Give me a bit of an idea. Talk me through this, Joe. What do you mean by these different levels of connections, and how this affects us and our power network?
Yeah, well, I call this my Seinfeld model, because I'm a huge Seinfeld fan. It's my go-to show when I just want to relax or have some background kind of entertainment happening. And I've watched it over and over. Anyway, but I thought I'd use this model to explain how LinkedIn works. Because with LinkedIn, you've got what's called a network, and your network is 3 degrees deep. So it's connections of connections of connections. That's the world you live in on LinkedIn, and that's the world you've got access to. Anybody outside of that network is invisible to you, and you're invisible to them, which is really important to understand. So while LinkedIn is growing, and at the moment, the count is 850 million members, and they re-announce their numbers every quarter. So I predict the next announcement will be 870 million members, because it was 830 last time. I love patterns.
Yeah, wow, that is huge.
It's huge, but you don't have access to all those people. You've only got access to 3 degrees from you. So you can see that the more people you're connected to, the more people you have got access to, and the more people have access to you. So I'll talk you through this model to explain how that works. So, and I'll use the character names. If you're not a Seinfeld fan, it will still make sense. Rachel, are you a Seinfeld fan at all?
Yes, I'm not as much a Seinfeld fan as my husband Col. He's obsessed, but I certainly know who they all are, and I've watched a number of episodes, but not as many as Col.
Yeah, okay, great. So I'm speaking Col's language. Awesome. So as I said, 3 degrees deep is your network. Outside of 3 is outside of your world. And if you know Newman, Newman on Seinfeld is outside of the world. I mean, he's that annoying character that they put up with, but don't necessarily go to first. Anyway, so let's talk about how it works. So Jerry is connected to George, meaning George is a first level connection. George is connected to Elaine. So Elaine is first to George, second to Jerry. Elaine is connected to Kramer. Kramer is first to Elaine, second to George, third to Jerry. Newman is first to Kramer, but because he's more than 3 degrees away from Jerry, Jerry can't see him. Now, in order for Jerry to have access to Newman in search, and I'm talking general searches here, and I'll talk a little bit more about that a bit later on. But if he wants to, if Newman wants to be in Jerry's search, someone has to connect and bring the connections closer. So if Jerry was to connect to Elaine, everybody moves in a step. It's like a queue. You've all moved over in the queue. If Jerry jumps ahead and connects to Kramer, because that's possible, then Kramer is first, then Newman is second. So it's about constantly growing your network. Now, you might think, let's just connect to every man and his dog because that's going to benefit you. But is it? Because then you put a random network rather than a strategic network.
Yeah, okay then. That makes absolute sense. I really, you've told me that before, but that really hits home this afternoon. I'm glad you've talked about that because that is, so I'm glad we're speaking about strategic network because I know some people who just, connect with everybody so that they can expand their reach. But that is absolutely not what we want to do if we're being strategic and we're going to be efficient and effective with our time rather than wasteful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
because it's about being strategic, but it's not about necessarily connecting to just your clients or the people you want to sell to, because there are people in between that can be helpful. So, for instance, in this case, if Jerry ultimately wants to sell to Kramer, but not George, or not Elaine, let's use Elaine because she's second. He doesn't want to sell to Elaine, so he might disregard her and think, no, I don't need to connect to her because I can't provide a service to her and I can't use her. But Elaine's connected to Kramer, who's an ideal client. So you kind of want to connect to people who are influencers of your ideal clients.
Right. Okay, that is a fantastic tip. So connect to the people who are influencers of your ideal client. Awesome. All right, brilliant. Okay, that is all sensational information. So thank you very much for that. That very helpful. Okay, second question is, how do we find the most lucrative connections on LinkedIn?
Yeah, now that's a really good question because by lucrative, I'm thinking you mean people that ultimately you're going to sell to, people who are going to become clients or ambassadors, maybe?
Yes, absolutely. So lucrative to me means it's a very worthwhile connection. There's definitely a chance that you can do business with them, or they're going to be someone who you can have a strategic alliance with, a partnership of some degree. You can leverage that relationship, and it's going to be a win-win situation for the two of you. That's what I would say lucrative is in this sense.
Yeah, excellent. I just want to clarify that because some people might think we're looking at selling to them, which is the ultimate goal, but there are, like I said, many steps in between them and many different types of relationships. I mean, just a side note, I love being connected to people in the SalesSPACE community because we support each other and help each other, learn from each other. And while that person may not be your client, they may be connected to people who are your clients. So it's nice to be in that sort of community, which is why I love the word community. So that's just a side note, but it's about targeting. It's about being strategic because targeting brings tangible results. And I know I'm speaking to the converter with you, Rachel, because targeting is a big part of what you do.
Absolutely.
But if you've got that clarity, then your efforts are going to be efficient and effective, as you said. It's not going to feel like it's not going to feel random. It's not going to feel like hit and miss because you know exactly why you're there and who you want to engage with. So as I said, making sure you know who and take some time to work through that. And Rachel, you've got some, I guess, content about targeting that people can tap into to get some clarity around that.
So we teach, our workshop is called The Truth About Lead Generation, and really it all starts with targeting. And if you don't know how to target, then you are just scattergun approach and you are very easily going to really miss your target completely. So understanding how to find your ideal leads and who exactly they are is critical. So it's a subject I love to talk about, but let's have a look at how we actually, once you know who your ideal audience is or who your ideal power network is on LinkedIn. So power network, strategic, lucrative partners then I want to know what we do next. And I know I've got a slide that you developed for us, Joe, to help us to do that.
Yeah.
So hopefully you can see this slide and it's not too small. We will send out the recording for any of you who are watching now or have registered but are not going to be able to see this slide. We'll send it out to you as well. But let's have a look through this, Joe, about how we can actually find these connections.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's about having criteria, which comes from targeting, knowing what you want to say yes to, but also being proactive and seeking out the right people. So if you're looking for a particular person, a particular industry, or a particular role, typing it into search and then using the inbuilt search filters to find them. Because you want to be specific, and the more specific, the better, really. So if you're looking to connect with a particular person, like I said, put that word into search, and then notice the results. Now, in this example here, you can see I'm looking for mailman, which, I mean, why would you be looking for mailman? I'm just using the Newman example because that's what he does in the show. And you'll notice here the word mailman shows up in the search list. Now look at where it shows up. It shows up in the headline, which is that bit of text under your name, your positioning statement, your pitch almost. It also shows up in your experience title, your experience description, your about section, skills, and a combination of those things influences the search algorithm. So you can see now the importance of getting your headline right. If you're calling yourself business owner at ABC Consulting, for instance, and someone's searching for what you do, and you're a leadership coach or you're an accountant, and you haven't said that, you're going to be missed in search. So it's, from a branding perspective, you want to have those things there so people can find you. But from the other side of the coin, if you're being proactive and looking for people, you now know what to look for, and look for various variations of those words to find people. So the more specific, the better. So you've got the words that you put into search, and then you've got the filters. And now this is just a quick screenshot. And just a side note, if you want to have a look at the filters you have available, if you click into the search little box at the very top of LinkedIn, click in and press enter. Don't put anything in, and then go to people and all filters. You'll see this list, and you can see what you've got available to you. So you've got the ability to search by relationship, the first, second, third, and now you understand where that fits in. So outside of third, you're not going to see them. They're going to show up as LinkedIn member in search results. You've got connections of. So if I want to search Rachel's connections, because you're very well connected, I can put in some criteria, type in, and add Rachel because I've already connected, and I can then look through your network. Who do you know that I might need to know? You can search by industry. I use that a fair bit. And things like location. I mean, that can be quite useful for targeting, and even down to the actual organization. So if you're looking to find a particular person in IBM, in Apple, in Google, tech companies, clearly I'm focused on that one, or a real estate company, for instance, then you can look and find a short list in that organization. So it's quite powerful search if you know how to use it, and then you can find the right people.
So just coming back now, one thing I asked you the other day, Joe, was if we could actually search female or male. So if I wanted to speak to female CEOs or female business owners, could we search for that? And you're like, oh, that could be challenging.
Yeah, and I love that question, because I love questions that I don't know the answer to, because I thought, ooh, I mean, I knew the answer, but I had to confirm. Now, gender is not a search criteria, unfortunately. Even in the premium accounts, you don't have access to that information. But me and how my brain thinks, I'm thinking pronouns is a fairly new feature, and people are putting he, her, she, him, not she, him, she, her, he, him, things like that. So, doing a search, that would make sense to be part of the search results, but it's not. Now, some people will say things like female CEO, and there's certain words they might use in their profile. So here's a tip for your own positioning. If you want to be found for your gender, because your audience are looking for your gender in relation to what you do, put your gender in your profile, because you'll potentially come up in search results. And I did this myself. This a couple of years ago now, where there was a push for more female keynote speakers. So I actually had female keynote speaker in my headline, just to see if it had any impact. Now, I've changed it because I'm not focused on that anymore. But it's about knowing your audience, knowing what they're seeking out, and then understanding how you can seek people out. So yeah, you can do a search for these terms. I think I've got a screenshot to demonstrate that. But it's about looking, and then just looking through the results. Now, the more specific you are in search,
is this the one you want to show? Is this the one?
Yes, I can't see the top of the screen, but I think it says female CEO, I think on that slide.
Okay, yes, it does. Yeah.
Yeah, great. So you'll see here the shortlist. Now you can see where the words show up. So what you could do is, if you look on this, if you do a search like this and you've put some, defined criteria, you might use location, industry, you might be looking for female CEOs in the mining sector in Brisbane, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
The URL at the very top of the page, you can save that and come back to it later. And this is where you can get help from a virtual assistant, a marketing assistant to help you with this process. But you just then look through the list, and obviously you look like a female, you might have a process then to connect to them and disregard the males in that sense if you're not looking for males, or vice versa if you're looking for men but not women because of the type of service you offer.
Okay.
Yeah,
fantastic. All right, great. What I would love to ask, if anybody's here and listening to us and you would like to know how to search for something in particular, please just pop it into the comments now so that we can ask Jo while we've got her here, because that's why I rang her the other day and said, can I search for female? Can I search for just male particular? And I got that answer from Jo. So if there's something that you would like to search for and you're not sure how to do that, then please pop it into the comments so we can loop back to you and ask Jo that question. All right. Well, thank you, Jo. That was fabulous. So really helpful so far. And as I said, it could be a little bit harder to see the screenshot, but hopefully you'll be able to see it much easier in the recording. Okay. Question number 3 is there an etiquette to strategic introductions via LinkedIn?
Well, if you're looking to connect to somebody, it's about having a targeted approach, that specific approach. So if you've got a leadership program for female CEOs, and maybe you're flying to Auckland and you want to run this very targeted program, when you start searching for those people, and then you've got the search list, and this is where your messaging comes up, having a targeted message that's not about you. So if you start with, I've got a program, you need to be there, buy my stuff, that's not going to work. It's too soon to sell. But it's having, like I said, that process. So if you can be, I say, be interested, not interesting, because when you try to be too interesting, it can be off-putting. If you connect with I'm the leading leadership coach in the world and I can 10x your business and blah, 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 the person's going to tune out and just assume you're just trying to sell to them. And you probably, if you're listening to this, put in the chat, have you received one of those type of messages yourself? I get them every day. We've got this software, you look like a great fit, it's going to benefit your business, it's a really great CRM. They haven't asked if I've got a CRM already. Do I love my Zoho CRM that SalesSPACE happened to set up and recommend? I do. So I'm not a client for that. But if they wanted to, they could be interested in me and say something about me, and then lead to the question about how do I manage my relationships? What do I love about my current CRM? And then they've earned the right to talk about their CRM and how brilliant it is, or what it does that my current one doesn't do. So it's about being about the person and slowing down that connection request, looking at their profile, looking for things in common. So on a profile, you've got the highlight section. So if I go to your profile, Rachel, and we're not connected, I can look for the highlights to see, what do we have in common? Where have we studied together? Are we in groups together? Have we worked somewhere or studied somewhere? Or have we been to an event even? Those little trigger points are great conversation starters. And there's many other places in your profile. Looking at your experience, I might comment on something you've done in the past, or a post where you've shared something about an achievement, or you shared some information and I found it highly valuable. I'm going to respond and say, I love that. That was so helpful.
Okay, that's great.
Huge topic.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I think we've got a couple of questions. Have we there, Col? Camille has got a question now. I now invite them to subscribe to my LinkedIn newsletter, says Camille. It's not a question, it's just a comment that she made about strategic introductions.
Yeah, and I guess it depends on that person. Now, if that's a person Camille knows, like say it's someone from your BNI chapter, someone you've met, someone who's attended one of your webinars, then it might be appropriate to invite them to subscribe to your newsletter. Nothing wrong with that. But if it's a completely cold connection and you're trying to build rapport, it might be too soon. Do that along the process. So it depends. But yeah.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. All right, let's go next question. Thank you. What is the key to cultivating deep online connections besides what you've already talked about?
Yeah, well, like I said, it's about being interested, doing your research, and creating an experience for them, I suppose. So if I am connecting to a group of people who are, I'll use recent client sort of audience. So I've done some work with universities. I'm working with PhD and master students. I love that group of people because they're experts in their field. They're looking to make a massive difference in their industry. So the way I engage with them is going to be very different to the way I engage with, I don't know, a project manager or someone in an organization. They may be in an organization too, but my approach with them is going to be about being interested in their research. Like, I'm really excited about anybody doing some cool stuff. I'm just really nosy and curious. So, you know, I have a client who has created a product that it's a foam product that stops the gases leaking out of coal mining and the mining industry. And I just love learning. I mean, it's not a field I'm in at all. I mean, I love that TV, Netflix show, what's it called? Big Machines or something, or, you know, the biggest blah, blah, blah. I love just learning stuff and, you know, about other people's industries. So being interested in what they do and showing authentically as well, and just learning about them and getting them to share their passion, you're going to build a deeper relationship.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely. And I've got a slide here that you created for us, and this one's create systems for spontaneity. Conversations breed connection. Talk to us about that.
Well, it's about that. You might be thinking, you know, all this sort of personalization and research is time consuming. And yes, it can be. But this is where, you know, if you have an assistant in your business, in your, you know, in your role, you can get some help with the research part. But that sort of engagement piece is best coming from you or your voice, because when you converse with someone, you're building that connection and rapport. It's like when you go networking. If you go to, and you've probably been to events, and more so before COVID, I think, where people just pass their business cards, their flyers, their objective is to talk to you and talk at you and tell you how awesome they are. And that's not how we connect, is it? I want to, you know, I want to learn about you, absolutely, but it's through conversation. And if I ask, and you know, I used to hate networking, which is interesting when we're talking about networking today. But what I've learned is, and this is the best advice I give to particularly young people, is just be curious, ask questions, because when you ask questions of other people, they talk, and then you can relate to that. You can find, you know, connection points. So it's just, so going back to having a system, it's creating systems and processes for how you network with different groups of people, so that you can be highly personal with that approach to that particular industry, those, you know, particular roles. As I said, PhD candidates, I'm going to have a process to deal, you know, to interact with them, which is different to someone who's running a business that's been around for a long time. Yeah, it's about relationship building, and relationships can't be automated. And there are some LinkedIn trainers around who will teach you their one-stop fix-all kind of magic formula, 10x your business. Usually they use some of that sort of language, but they don't work. And I'm not sure if you've been across any of these, but they're volume. I'm about, you know, voice over volume, value over volume. You're just going to annoy people if you're just going to automate and not targeted. And it's a salesy, spammy approach. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, I absolutely. Yes, okay, fantastic. All right, let's go to our next question now. Thank you for that so far. Is there a perfect introduction message? What information should we include to ensure it's efficient and effective?
Yeah, like I said, being about them, not about you. You've got to earn the right to be about you. I've got a couple of examples, 3 examples I'll just quickly talk you through. And these are real examples I've received. And I like them because they speak to me and they show interest in me. And obviously, and have a think about what you receive. Which ones do you love and which ones do you just go, ooh, I'm not connecting to you? So this first one in the top corner, thank you for demonstrating the newest search feature on LinkedIn. Your LinkedIn expert checklist is going to be my forward focus, thrilled to connect. Now, this person has let me know what experience they've had with me. So I demonstrated search with them. They've got the list and it's useful. So they've not tried to sell me anything. And I'm not going to sell them anything at this point either. That's not what this is about. They're just showing their appreciation. They've also let me know how they know me, which is quite useful. So of course I'm going to say yes. The next one across. Hey Joe, welcome to the X community. I've just replaced the name. Figured I'd check out the cool work you're doing on here. Awesome to see how many cool humans we're connected with. Looking forward to conquering our to-do list inside Y together. So this one is a software, and I like this example because it's a very friendly message. They've referenced their community, and I like the way they've used community as well, and the product. But it's not a salesy tool. It's not a salesy message here. They're not trying to upsell me. They're just showing that they've done their research. They can see I'm a new client and how they've referenced it. So if you're doing it from a product or a program perspective, you can welcome people into your community. So think about if you've got a part of your, I guess, your funnel, your marketing funnel might be a free Facebook group or a free, whatever it is, an experience. You could then reach out and connect on LinkedIn. And this message is templated, I'm sure, but it's very casual and friendly. So of course I'm going to say yes. So that's a good one.
Perfect.
And then the final one, just a quick one. Hi, Joe. It was a great presentation this week at the name of the event. I appreciate the insights and have already implemented a few. Once again, they've let me know how they know me, how they've used the information, which is great. But mentioning the name of the event is useful for both of us. It reminds me where I know them from, but it reminds them where they first met me and I love doing this. So I might say, if I've just attended an event this week, I might say, great to meet you at the blah, blah, blah event, because eventually you're going to move on. You're going to change roles or processes. And like I do this with students, for instance. I had a student connect to me and I mentioned the school that she was at and the session she was in, because sometimes people don't put their schools on their profile. She might move into a role and come out of university, and in 5-7 years' time, she's an expert in a particular field, and she might bring me into her organization. I now know where the connection point is. So down the future, I can reference that and say, oh, it was, wow, you've come a long way since blah, blah, blah. So it's how you can build that ongoing relationship.
Yeah, love it. Okay, fantastic. Excellent. Really good examples there. So thank you so much. If anyone has got any examples of anything that they either have received or that they have sent that have worked really well as well, please pop them into the comments so that we can see good examples, what you're using that work, or what you've received that you've really enjoyed. That would be super helpful to help everybody today by putting them into the comments. And I would love to share that with everybody. Okay, our next question for you, Joe. Thank you for your wonderful information so far. Are groups worth including in our strategy to increase our network?
Yeah. Now, this is an interesting question, because my first thought was, don't bother with groups, because groups on LinkedIn don't have the same value that, say, Facebook has. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of Facebook by any means, but I think the most powerful part of Facebook is groups, because the community piece works really well. LinkedIn have a lot to learn, but what I love about groups is the access to people that you're not connected to. And it makes sense to join groups for that reason. So if you're a leadership coach or you work in mining, find groups around the topics that you are an expert in, or that you want to know more about, or people need to know you, because if it's a topic that people are interested in, you're going to meet either your peers, referral partners, clients. So there's different types of groups you're going to join, because once you've got a group in common, that whole being outside of your network doesn't matter anymore, because that person is now in your network because of groups. So actually, if I go back to that Seinfeld model, what's also, first, second, and third plus groups. So groups wipe out fourth. So that's probably the number one reason to join groups.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, good. All right. That's a really handy hint. I love that. All right. My final question before we go to some of the others that have been sent in. Finally, what are the 3 key factors that make a lasting impression on our connections?
Well, I'm going to go through 3 at a high level and then just talk a little bit more through some other things. So I guess number 1 is adding value, not volume. And I've already said this, but it's about being of value, being strategic with that, so that you're not just adding noise to an already noisy platform. Because also, when you talk about too many different things, you're going to confuse the market too. So I don't do it anymore, but about 3 years ago, I was still delivering Facebook training, but I would never, ever talk about it publicly because I don't want to be known for that. And then I started saying no, which was so empowering because I don't love Facebook anymore. So it's about being strategic about the value add and not posting 4 or 5 times a day. You don't need to do that on LinkedIn. It's about that value. So that's number 1. Number 2, contributing to conversation. So not just posting content and being a publisher of your own content, spending time engaging. Because if I scheduled 1 post a day, and that's all I do, and I've got a great profile, you're going to be seen. Yes, you're building credibility, but you're not building connection. So number one, respond to any comments on your content. So for instance, this conversation, I mean, I can't see the comments from where I am right now, but the comments, it's good to go back and respond to them. And, it's part of rapport building, but also going on to other people's content from that strategic list of people, those targeted types of people that you want to build a relationship with, and engage with them because you're spreading their content to your network. So that's number two. And then the third one is just being really conscious of being on brand and using sales messages that connect and compel.
Fantastic. Which you have absolutely mastered the art of. We taught Joe sales messages probably a year ago, and you have just gone on to be the master of sales messages. I love it. Everything I see from you has got all these beautiful, succinct messages through it. It's just great.
And do you want to just explain what sales messages are, Rachel? Because you'll do it much better than I do.
Yeah, sales messages are bumper sticker statements that just capture your uniqueness in that one little point. So it's just the unique language of your business. So instead of you taking copious amounts of sentences to explain what you do, it's just that language that you just say and just go, boom, that's what I mean. And when you can actually put your sales messages through everything, it just changes the way you go. Most people, our goal is to go from waffle to world class in our language, and that's what sales messages do for you.
I love that. And to see that in action, I mean, if you go to SalesSPACE website, have a look, but also Rachel's profile. Look at her headline. She's got a couple in there infused in the about section. So I love that you're infusing them into your LinkedIn presence, which is brilliant.
Yes, well, I've been taught from the best, but also you can see on our banner behind me, SalesSPACE, leverage neuroscience for optimal sales. That's a sales message. So even your taglines on your website, so your website, your LinkedIn profile, everything needs to be, you can remove so much waffly language and replace it with a bumper sticker sales message and a bumper sticker statement once you know how to do your messaging. So Joe, your profile does it beautifully. You've got, I know ours does too, mine does too now, but certainly yours is a role model of excellence when it comes to implanting sales messages into it to make it so much more exciting to read.
Yeah, and I guess I love seeing other people do that when they've got a combination of what I teach and what you teach, because together they just go so well, don't they? So it's nice.
Absolutely. This is why we love doing our LinkedIn lives and working together. Awesome. Fantastic. All right then. So we're going to go to some questions now. So if you've got some questions for Joe or me, I'm happy to answer questions as well, but certainly on our topic today, let's have a look. So Paul has sent one in for us. So the 3 degrees you refer to a construct of LinkedIn. Is the 3 degrees you refer to a construct of LinkedIn?
Yeah, so thanks, Paul, and nice to see you here live. We were just physically in a room last week together, so that's great. Yeah, so it is a LinkedIn. It's LinkedIn language. It's the core of the LinkedIn network, and it's the power of LinkedIn because, with some platforms you've only got access to people, your connections, and then the general audience. And the other part that this plays is in your content, because when you share an update, so for instance, Rachel posts an update about this event. If you've seen it and you've commented, you're amplifying it to your network. So it's about leveraging your community and not, like I said, and that's why you've got to look beyond clients. It's not just about clients, it's about referral partners. So yeah, it's part of LinkedIn's ecosystem. And I love it because it's a massive superpower. And the more, like I said, the more connections you have, the more reach you have, the more exposure you have, the more brand awareness. And then the more impact you can have.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, Joe, I've got a question for you that I know that I think about myself, and I know clients have said to me as well. What happens, if you really want to work within a certain company and that the executive you want to speak to is really inactive on LinkedIn? What do you do when someone is highly inactive on LinkedIn and they are absolutely they're the person to be in your ideal power network?
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And so there's a few parts to this. So being connected to them gives you access to their world, their networks, which is a useful thing. So it depends on how they use LinkedIn. And when I teach networking in the masterclass, I've got one coming up, I talk about the different relationships and how you use it. So if that person has a profile and they've got their own network, but they're not active, And it could be a time thing, just a capacity thing. They don't have the bandwidth, they don't have an assistant to help them and that sort of thing, and they don't have a strategy. Yeah, you could connect and that's all, but then end of conversation, because they may not be checking their LinkedIn very often. They may not be responding to connection requests or messages. So that's when you need to go off LinkedIn then. Now, you might send a connection request either before you've spoken to them, or you might look at their profile, because looking at their profile sends a trigger, and it'll say, Rachel's looked at your profile. Now, whether they're using LinkedIn actively or not, they may see that. Now, if you then reach out, whether it's email, whether it's phone, which I think, Rachel, is your preferred method, isn't it? Going phone first?
I do like going phone first. Yes. If I can, yes, if I can find someone's phone number, absolutely.
Yeah, so you might find a way in, and you might name drop then, or platform drop. I've never said that before, platform drop. You might just say, hi, I was just looking at your LinkedIn profile. I can see blah, 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 because you've just looked and researched them and found something about them, or their organization. Now, if they're not active, maybe if they're part of a larger organization, look at their company page. Is there a marketing person running this? And so many organizations I see, it's almost like they're letting their brand down by not being active from a company perspective, because I mean, that's a whole other workshop and discussion, but you could reference something that's been shared there, a recent accolade, a win, some content they've shared, maybe they've expanded, something there. So when you then pick up the phone, you've got the intelligence from LinkedIn or their website. So it depends. Yeah. And then if you sort of say, or you might actually phone them, you've looked at their profile, then you might say, I'll send you a connection request on LinkedIn. Now they're expecting it. Now it's going to be a little bit embarrassing if they say no, because they know you're going to do it, and it might bring them to LinkedIn, which allows you to access their network. So, so there's a couple of parts, a couple of ways to do this.
Yeah, okay, thank you. That is a tricky one, so I'm glad I asked you that question. Okay, let's have a look at this one from Lottie. Thank you, Lottie. If you can see someone who's viewed your profile, should you reach out / connect to them? And if so, what would you say? Great question,
good
Lottie.
Question. Yeah, really good question. Now, it depends on your brand and how you do this, and also who the person is to you. You could say, hi, I saw you were looking at my profile. What do you want?
That's one way of doing it.
No, I probably wouldn't do that. But you might acknowledge the fact that you know, but not everybody realizes that you know, because we forget these things. So I look at a profile as a trigger to remind them of me, or just to put me on their radar. So sometimes I'll acknowledge it, and sometimes I won't. But if it's someone who's an ideal client or a referral partner and they've looked at my profile, I might connect to say, I noticed you looked at my profile, I'm interested, and then talk about them, be all about them. And then you might ask a question, what brought you to my profile? Because you might want to know what that connection point was. Did they see you in a conversation? Did they strategically search you out? Did someone refer to you? Maybe someone said, oh, you need to speak to Rachel. She is a master sales trainer. That might be the reason. So get that out of them, but be about them first, and then be curious. But don't try to sell them, and don't say, what do you want? Don't do that. It's a bit rude.
Okay, that's really cool. I really like that question. Thank you so much, Lottie, and thank you, Joe, for that great answer. Okay, have we got any more questions? Yes, Anna. How do you search for businesses that, say, in Parramatta, that need to comply with a certain act, like the Modern Slavery Act? So this is a very particular search. Can you get super particular, like Anna has asked?
That's a very specific question, but you can search by location, you can search by industry. So I guess look at what you've got. So if they've got to comply with a particular act, think about what industry, and there may be multiple. So do searches per industry, get highly targeted. Who is the person in the role that you generally deal with? So what is their title? It might be search for titles in this industry, in this location. And you might even have a keyword. So if that's something they would reference in their profile, I don't know if they would in this case, but what do they talk about? Look for some words language that they use that's potentially going to be in their profile, and then do a search and be super specific. So if you get a list of 5 people, that's brilliant, because now you can be highly targeted with how you approach those people. And you could ask questions. Like I said, it might just be asking about how they do comply, if that's appropriate to ask. It might not be the right time. That might be the second sort of interaction.
Okay.
But yeah, a good question. Love it.
Super particular, and this is it. So, this is creating the really strategic power network. You need to get very specific. How do you do that? So that was a great answer. Thank you, Joe. Any other questions we have from everybody? Yes. So Frank, thank you so much, Frank. Is it okay to ask a person who you don't know, but who sends you an invite, a connect invite, why they are inviting you.
Yeah, absolutely. Once again, be curious. It's difficult to communicate tone in text. So, depending on your brand, I mean, you might ask a question, have a little emoji to show a bit of emotion here, and that lightheartedness. But no, nothing wrong with that. If someone wants to connect to me and I don't know them from a bar of soap, firstly I look at their profile and I look for things in common. Who do they know? And guarantee there'll be someone in common. So I might mention them. But what I'll do is I might say something friendly like, I'd love to know what brought you to my profile, because I'm curious. It might be that they've read something of mine, or they've heard me speak, or someone's talked about me. But absolutely. Now, sometimes if they don't respond, that's a good filter for spammers. Either they're going to ignore you completely, or they'll respond with, buy my stuff, 10x your business. I'm a business coach. I can help you. And you'll get a gauge for it. Is it automated? Is it systemized and not working? Or is it just random?
Yeah. Okay, got it. Fantastic. Yeah. Thank you for that, Frank, and thank you, Joe. And we have another question, I think. One more question. Okay, so industrial designers, product designers, not digital, in the Sydney, Newcastle, Central Coast region. Okay, so this person is wanting to search for industrial designers or product designers who are not digital in these regions. Can you do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a thing called Boolean searching, and I teach that in my networking masterclass. But just Google Boolean searching and learn. There are essentially 5 operators within LinkedIn that you can use, and or not, little commas, quotations, I should say, and brackets. Now, in this case, you'd be looking for industrial designers in quotations, or product designers, quotations around that, not digital. And then you'd use the filters. So that's it in a nutshell. And with the locations, now, thankfully, LinkedIn extended Australia. And I'm in Western Australia, which is quite big. And you used to be able to only search by Perth, Western Australia, or Australia. Now, Perth is miles away from Broome, but now they've added regional. So you can have regions. So in this case, it would have been Sydney, New South Wales, Australia. So now you can search for Newcastle, for instance. Central Coast region, I'm actually not sure if that's a thing, but you have like Greater Sydney. So regions possibly not. So you might just have to know what are the main towns or regional centres in that particular location. And like I said, be specific. Repeat this process a number of times, because that targeted list is going to help you. And then save that URL so that you can keep coming back to it and seeing who's showing up in the results.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. Okay, really, really helpful. Thank you. And I think that question is probably from Adam Barlow, I would say. So thank you. Can
I just add a point to that? Now, on screen it said LinkedIn user, and I'm not sure if you can see who it is, but that may be because Adam's privacy settings are for his photo and name are set to a different setting, not public. So if you're wondering why you're not showing up as your name, check your privacy settings.
Yeah, Adam, we all want to see you. We want to be promoting you. So make sure you put your name up there. Okay, fantastic. And one more from, I think, Robert, if you want to show that one from Robert. So, Robert, thank you. Do you need LinkedIn Premium to assist with business networking?
Oh, good question. Really good question. Now, Premium is great and I love it, but it's like a gym membership. And I'm not sure if you've done this. I've certainly done this. I've bought a gym membership. I've gone once and not gone back. I haven't got fit. Premium is exactly the same. Now, I'm like a LinkedIn personal trainer. I keep you in action and with the right action and teach you how to do it. Now, with Premium, yes, it does give you better functionality for search, but it's a waste of money if you're not using it. So if all you're doing for your networking is sitting back and waiting for people to connect to you, that's not proactive. No point having Premium for that. It doesn't give you any extra in-depth capability. But if you're going to be proactive and using search and seeking people out, you're going to hit what's called the commercial search limit. Now, I can't tell you the number. LinkedIn will not share it, but I've seen it happen a lot. And it will just say, you've hit the limit, you have to now wait till the following month. Now, if this is happening at, say, the 29th of the month, doesn't matter. You just have to wait a couple of days. But if this is happening on the 2nd of the month, then that's going to impact your ability to network. So if you're doing a lot of proactive networking, which I recommend you should be if you're trying to grow your brand and your business, then that's when Premium's of value. And just a side note, I don't work for LinkedIn. I'm not an official salesperson. I don't sell their platform. I get no benefit. So I'm about the user. I'm independent. but premium has a place, but it's not the answer to everything.
Yeah, okay, fantastic. All right, well, we need to keep going now because we need to wrap it up this afternoon. So thank you so much. I know there's more questions in there. We will get to go, Joe, to answer the questions. So if you have more questions, please put them into the chat. It's not the chat, it's in the comment section, so that we can get back to you, because this is such a big topic. We could talk about this for ages, because as you're talking, I'm thinking of more and more questions, but I know we need to move on. So let's quickly have a chat now, Joe. Your methodology, if we just want to share with people what your methodology is, from your Connectfluence methodology. And we've got a fantastic offer this afternoon, or today, if people are keen to know more and actually have you as their LinkedIn personal trainer.
Yeah, I might start using that. Yeah, so Connectfluence is, like I said, the name of the methodology. It's the name of my upcoming book. It's the name of my programs. And it sits behind everything that I do and teach. But essentially, it combines my deep knowledge, my intense curiosity, also nosy, I'm just nosy, and proven frameworks to show you how to increase your visibility, your recognition, and your influence, which ultimately gives you that impact and the results you're looking for, whether it's sales, whether it's leverage, whether it's speaking opportunities, partnerships, whatever that is. So that sits behind what I do.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. And you've got a great offer for people this afternoon. If you would like to run through that with everybody, what they need to do to be able to work with you, if they'd like you to help them with their LinkedIn strategic networking.
Yeah, so I occasionally do public masterclasses. I've got programs, and this is part of it. This is one small piece, but the masterclass coming up that's related to this topic is this one, the building a powerful network. So we've touched on a few of the topics, but I go deeper into the, how to search, how to connect, Boolean searching, and how to do all those sorts of things, so that you can really build it strategically and have a process around this. So the offer, you can go to the link and pay $275, or why would you do that? You can scan this QR code with your phone, which takes you directly to the offer with $100 off, or you can go to the event and put the promo code of SalesSPACE, because I like to reward this beautiful community, and you can book in that way as well. But if you're not sure, just send me a private message going, what did you say, Joe? And I'm honor it for you. So just let me know.
Okay, fantastic. And we just put the link in the comments as well. So QR code and go in and grab this fantastic deal to work with Joe. All right, or you can connect with Joe. Here you go. So let me get off this screen. I think we got a flashing slide. Oh, you got to love a flashing slide. Okay, you can find her very easily on LinkedIn. I'm going to come back here because flashing is a little bit annoying. We are not at a disco this afternoon.
Maybe we should be. Maybe it's a sign.
Takes me back to when I was in Year 7. Okay, so that is fantastic. It has been wonderful to speak with you today, Joe. Thank you so much for your incredible insight and wisdom when it comes to LinkedIn. And I have to say, you have completely changed my world when it comes to LinkedIn. And we have achieved incredible results through your help over the last 12 months in SalesSPACE. And let me tell you, I would never be on this LinkedIn Live if it wasn't for you, Joe. So you've shown me how to do it, and now I am absolutely loving it. And it's been a very, very great platform for us. So thank you. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. It's been a pleasure to have you on at my LinkedIn Live, the Yes Zone show. And do join us again in a couple of weeks. We have another brilliant guest, and watch out for our invitation, and we will see you all again very soon. Thanks, Joe. Talk to you soon.
See you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. Bye.